Greetings, everyone. It's Crime Talk with Crin, and we are back with episode 19. Welcome to all of my new subscribers. Welcome back to my day ones. I am excited, happy to be here. We are about to be at our 20th episode. I'm so excited. Thank you, everyone, for your continued support and helping my channel grow. You guys are amazing, and I'm having a blast. Um, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. Like this video, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. This video is going to be a little bit different. So we have spent a lot of time and a lot of episodes talking about the Idaho 4, and we're going to get right back to it with the next episode, don't worry. But I did not just get interested in true crime with the Idaho 4 case. I've been into this thing for forever, like literally forever. And so a big part of true crime is documentaries. And so that's what I have for you guys today is a reaction, not a review, but a reaction to the Netflix documentary Tell Them You Love Me. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Before I get into it, I would like to say this is a trigger warning. If you have not seen Tell Them You Love Me, it does deal with sensitive subjects. It involves disabilities and assault, depending on your perspective. And there is also a race aspect that comes into the documentary. I'm not going to get into the race aspect in this episode, and that's only because, when you look at the big picture, there are way bigger fish to fry. So this is your trigger warning. If you cannot deal with content that touches on disabilities or assault or things of that nature, then this reaction video is not going to be for you, and the documentary is definitely not going to be for you. So I understand and I respect that. This is also a spoiler alert because I will be talking about the documentary. So if you haven't seen it and you're considering watching it, check that out and then come back to this. If you want to know what it's about and you're going to watch it either way, continue. And if you want to know what it's about and you're not going to watch it at all, then continue. All right, so now that we got all that out the way, let's get into it. So the documentary is on Netflix and it's called Tell Them You Love Me. So I was sitting at home and my phone starts like blowing up. Like I'm getting a ton of text messages, and it's a couple of people, and they're telling me that I have to watch this. They're like, you have to watch this. It's a case. It's out of New Jersey. You can talk about it on your show. Like, you have to watch it. It's so crazy. So I was immediately interested because I am also in New Jersey. And so to be able to talk about a documentary that's, set in New Jersey, I was like, well, that'll be kind of cool. Just break up the Idaho 4 content. So let me check it out. When I went to check it out, I was very surprised. I did not know what to expect. I just knew that it was crazy and, it was recommended that I check it out. And I was very, very surprised. So let's get into it. Like I said, this is a reaction. So I'm not going to do like a full breakdown, play by play about the documentary, just in case you are going to watch it. But this is just my reaction to me watching it. So it starts out, and it's basically the story about um, a young man who has cerebral palsy. He is not able to walk or talk on his own. His brother, who was, going after his PhD, links up with this professor who is supposed to be a philosopher of race. She also works with, people with disabilities. And so some of the content that she's showing in her course or one of her lectures, he's like, this would really help my brother. So that's how the introduction is made. His brother cannot speak or walk on his own. The professor works with people who are disabled and unable to speak on their own. She introduces them to something called facilitated communication, and that's basically where the controversy comes into play. So, facilitated communication is not recognized by anybody, really. The American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association describes FC as a discredited technique that should not be used. The association says there is extensive scientific evidence that messages are authored by the facilitator rather than the person with a disability. In the documentary, there is a man who has made it his life mission to help people with impairments to their speech, and he did a double-blind study, and by the end of the study he was convinced that FC was garbage, like it was junk science according to them. I haven't done any studies. I don't know. But the experts, this guy, it seems like whenever there is a case involving someone who cannot speak, they call this guy. And so if this guy does a study and he's like, hey, this isn't above board, this isn't legit, I mean, who am I to say that he's wrong? So he said it wasn't true. It's nothing. And I mean, this is not recognized by excuse the page turning. I'm looking through my notes, but FC is not recognized by the American Psychological Association, the Association for Science and Autism Treatment. Like, none of the major organizations that work with people with disabilities are recognizing FC as a credible science technique or anything. So John is the brother, the student, the one who knew the professor and introduced her to his brother, whose name is Derrick. And so Derrick has cerebral palsy. Like I said, he's unable to walk or talk on his own. So the reason why whether FC is credible or not is because the professor claims that she taught Derrick how to use facilitated communication, and he's been able to communicate with her. And in the time that they spent together, she says that she fell in love with him. Derrick, at the time, was 29 years old, I believe, and the professor was 38, or the numbers are very close to that, maybe 28 and 39, something like that. However, so the age part wasn't the issue. Derrick is a black male. The professor is a white woman. So this is only for context purposes and why race came into the conversation. So now She claims that, they've been having these scholarly and intellectual conversations, and over the course of time she fell in love with him. And she started to explain to John and their mother that Derrick is a grown man and that she shouldn't be treating him like a baby. So the reason that that is an issue is because they essentially had to do everything for Derrick for his entire life. They've taken him to doctors. He's been diagnosed. He's been to specialists. He goes to a day program and all of these things. And, it was pretty much determined by assessment that he did not have the ability to carry out preschool level functions on his own. He had to wear a diaper. And, he eventually learned to walk at the day program, but like I said, not on his own. So these are all things that are factors. So now you have this woman who is supposed to be caring for him and helping him, but now she's saying that she's in love with him. I personally feel like that's absolutely inappropriate. And so when we have been bombarded with stories from the Me Too movement of able-bodied and able-minded women who were, trying to make it into into Hollywood. And these directors took advantage of them because of their position of power. So it's basically like, hey, I am the end all be all here. Like, I have the power. I have your future in my hands. So if I tell you to get naked in this office, ma'am, you should probably get naked or you're probably not going to get that role. And so even though the professor was not saying things to Derrick in that manner, it's still the same dynamic. She was someone who presented herself as having his future, his ability to think and speak and communicate on his own. She presented herself as someone that was able to tap into that and give him a future that he otherwise would not have received. And now you're saying that this person who spent 29 years of his life needing help from others, and now you're saying that only you and you alone are able to communicate with him, and now you're in love with him, and you've gone so far to be physically intimate with him. And so that's where the trial comes from, because, well, now we all know, we're all on high alert, because the Me Too movement has blasted this, right? And so we've seen the debate about, whether someone who's drunk can consent. And it's like, well, no matter how much fun you guys had that night, you could have been at a party, you could have been out to dinner, you could have been on a date, you could have been hanging out with your friends, and you all had a blast, and you could have been flirting, and maybe you even did want to do it. But if you are drunk, you do not have the ability to consent because you're not in your right mind. And so when you take someone who has been assessed and determined to be unable to carry out preschool level functions, how is that person able to consent? So I think that she should have been charged. I think that she should have went to prison. I don't disagree with any of that. But before we get down to what happened at the courts, I want to talk about the dynamic between the professor and the mom, because I feel like that part was also wild and inappropriate. So there's a part in the documentary where they're on their way to a convention or speaking engagement or something. And the mom, Derrick's mom, is driving. And she has on gospel music. And the professor changes the radio station and says that Derrick doesn't like gospel music. He likes classical music. That right there is crazy to me. That is crazy to me because here's the thing. Personally, I like country music. That's just my taste. I like other music as well, but I like country music, okay? A lot of people that are in my friend group do not like country music, but I like it, okay? And so I have a child, and if we're in a car and I decide that I want to listen to country music, I'm going to listen to country music. I do not care if my child is 2, 12, or 20. If I want to listen to country music in my car, maybe you got next. Maybe you could, maybe we could go song for song and you can request a song later. But right now, I'm going to listen to Luke Combs. I'm going to listen to Darius Rucker. I'm going to listen to Carrie Underwood. And so if I am in my car with my kid and their friend, associate, coach, or whomever changes the station and says, oh, no, your son doesn't like country music. He wants to listen to techno. Have you lost your freaking mind? That right there already rubbed me the wrong way. And so there were other instances where the brother said, when we get back home, we're going to have a beer. And she's like, oh, he doesn't like beer. He likes red wine. Lady. And so, I imagine myself in that family and letting her know, like, hey, whatever you like is what you like. We've been around him for 29 years. And so the thing is, Derrick was unable to speak. It's not that he could not get his point across, because there were instances where he was able to express his displeasure or that he didn't want something or didn't want to do something. I have a young child. And so before my child was able to speak words that I could understand, he could still communicate to me if he didn't want something. Anybody who's fed a baby food, like with a spoon, and it turned their head. He does not have to be able to say, hello, mother. I don't want squash for dinner tonight. I would rather have bananas. He doesn't have to be able to say that for me to realize that he doesn't want squash. Whether I still give it to him or not is a different conversation. But he does not need to be able to properly articulate his displeasure for me to know that he doesn't like this or he doesn't want this. And so the fact that she came in to this family acting as though she knew better, and from the way that it was explained by the family, and they could have been sensitive, they could have been on guard, but the way that it was expressed or explained from the family was that she had this air about her that was like, ugh, no, don't do it like that. Or you're treating him like a baby. He's a grown man. And that has to be hard for a mother who has spent 29 years of her life feeding him, bathing him, changing his diaper, helping him get around. And so I would like to say that one thing that I noticed in the documentary was there were a ton of pictures. They had pictures documenting everything. And so even though Derrick was her disabled child, I don't see that she treated him any differently. John, his older brother, still treated him like he would a younger brother. That's what he said. Sometimes he would just put him on his back and they would, play around and things like that. So he was limited in certain ways, but he was still included. They didn't just let him sit in a corner all day. They were very much active with him in his life. And so for this woman to come in and like, oh no, don't do this, don't do that. He could do this, and it had to be very frustrating. And then when you come in and you say that you're in love and you've made love, I can't even. I can't even. And I don't want to compare him to a baby because he is an adult male. But even down to her explaining in detail to his mother how they were able to be physically intimate. It's crazy. It's crazy. There's no reason. And so that part of the documentary was really rough for me to get through because I know that you can't sit here and tell me things like that about my child. And I'm just supposed to be okay with it. The worst part about all of it, excuse me, even if Derrick was a completely able-bodied and able-minded young man, he's 28 years old, she's 39 years old. And so the age gap, could be an issue for some people. But what would have been more of an issue for me is the fact that you, ma'am, are married. And not married and separated and living separately. You are married. You have a husband at home and 2 small children of your own. And so you're sitting here saying that you're in love with Derrick, but you didn't even bother to shut things off at home. When you were like, oh wow, I'm in love with him. How am I going to process this? You didn't take a moment to process it and shut one door and move on. That's not what you did. You were sneaking behind your husband's back and, in my opinion, violating this young man. So anyway, I thought that was awful. Because you didn't have to do this. And so she's claiming that she's, one of those like sapiosexual people that like gets off on intellectual conversation. I can dig it. I love to be, mentally stimulated. I love having intellectual conversations. Y'all know I can talk. Let's talk. I need something to talk about. That's fine. That's all fine and dandy. But you are acting like any random man off the street could have explained to you what a cumulonimbus cloud was, and you would have just been ready to go. That's how you're acting, and I don't believe that's the case. When you said that you have a husband at home, but you weren't looking, things weren't great. And things aren't always great when you're, in a relationship or marriage with somebody else. Things are not always great. They don't have to be. But you said that things weren't great, but you were not looking to get out of the marriage. You weren't seeking anybody else. This just, kind of fell in your lap is what you're trying to say. And I think that's bogus. I think that that's bull. You are a professor. You didn't have intellectual conversations with John, the PhD student, who was like, hey, this will help my brother. How come you weren't trying to take your drawers off for John? How many students and professors and deans do you come across on a daily basis? How many colleagues do you sit down in a lounge or cafe or courtyard and have lunch with and chop it up and bounce ideas back and forth? How come you're not busting it open for them? Don't sit here and act like he stimulated you mentally so much that you just were overcome. Get out of here. Stop this. Stop this. You cannot sell that for free. And so I feel like the argument that she tries to pose is that he's a man and they are limiting him, and they're trying to believe, or they're trying to say that he can't do this and he can't do that, and he can do it. They just don't believe in him. I feel like that's what she's trying to push, and I don't think that that's fair, because I believe, and even John said, like, he was hopeful. He was hopeful because it's like, I'm out here getting my education. And if he's able to, get his education, that would be awesome. Like, I would love that for my little brother. I'm sure his mom is super proud of John. And she would be even more proud of Derrick. And I don't think that this is some a Gypsy Rose situation where they're trying to stifle him or keep him disabled for attention or whatever. I don't think that they're trying to stifle him. I believe that they are trying and have always tried to give him the fullest life that he could possibly have. From the pictures that they showed in the documentary and the way that they spoke, even when they showed Derrick at the end of the documentary, I believe that they love on him. They shower him with love. And I do not think that they even view Derrick as a burden. And these are just my opinions. This is my reaction. But I feel like that is what the professor was trying to suggest or hint at. And I don't think that that's the case at all. And, I'm not going to say that she's not in love with him or wasn't in love with him. I'm not going to say that. But I do believe that she has been, as a college professor, as a scholar, I believe that she's had many intellectual conversations with people. I believe that she has had very deep and meaningful conversations with a lot of people. This isn't her first intellectual conversation. This isn't the first person that has impressed her. I believe that she acted the way that she did because he is disabled, and she could. That's it. That's it. But anyway, so moving on, she is charged. She has a trial. She is convicted. And she gets sentenced to 12 years in prison. Okay? Now, she appeals. She wins the appeal. The basis of the appeal was that she says that Derrick was able to consent because he uses facilitated communication. That he was able to type on a computer and say, I want to make love or whatever. Take your clothes off, blah, blah, blah. So she's, not only is she claiming that he was the initiator of this physically intimate relationship. She said he wanted it and he started it. She just went along with it. So, because FC, facilitated communication, is not recognized professionally, scientifically, or legally, basically, they said that they couldn't use it in their defense. And so that's why she was convicted. And so her appeal, the conviction was overturned because they said that it was unfair that they did not allow it. And this is the beef that I have with this entire situation, is because I think that once you roll the dice and go to trial, you should be able to, that's it. You can't come back later and take a plea deal when you see as bad as it's going to get. When you see, oh, they're not playing with me, they just gave me 12 years. Now you want to double back and take a plea deal? I don't think she should have been offered a plea deal. I do not think that she should have been offered a plea deal. If you're saying that it was unfair that the first judge did not allow facilitated communication, now you want to give her a new trial and a new judge? Okay, you get a new trial, you get a new judge, and now we will allow you to use facilitated communication in your defense. I feel like that's the best offer she should have gotten. To take a plea deal and then walk out with for time served? That's crazy to me. That is crazy to me. Another reason that I think that she's full of crap is the mom said that after this ordeal, after this physical relationship with the professor, she said that Derrick was, I guess, compulsively pleasing himself. And she says that it's the professor's fault because had she not introduced him to these feelings or sensations or whatever, he would not have these urges. And I agree. But not only do I agree, I believe that had he been introduced to this or experienced these urges or sensations prior to her, he would have been touching himself before her. And so she's claiming that he initiated this. If he already had those thoughts, feelings, and urges, he would have been doing this before you. But you did this and introduced him to this, is my opinion. And it's not right. It's not right. And we don't know what he thinks or how he feels about this. And he might have thought that he had a relationship with her. We don't know. And he might have been heartbroken when it had to end abruptly. We don't know. But even if that's the case, that's foul. That's foul. You sat on that lady's phone talking about you would swear and write your name in blood that you were going to leave your husband, but yet your husband didn't know anything about this until the prosecutor's office came and knocked down your door. That's when he found out that this was raggedy and trifling. The letter that he wrote to the judge. And people might think, oh, he wrote that because he was, scorned because his wife, cheated on him. he said that she was a pathological liar. And so the reason why I believe what the husband said about her, and the reason why I believe that all this stuff that she's saying about, he asked me to take my shirt off and all this other mess, in the very beginning, when the documentary starts, she says, I'm pretty sure, or at least I'm hopeful, that I haven't been rewriting things in my head. I didn't want to do that. I see how easily it can happen. She knows. But when you get wrapped up in that psychological, like, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because, I don't want to rewrite things in my head. You mean lie? You're not misremembering. You're lying. When the expert said that she's basically having conversations with herself, when they showed the double-blind study and showed that they showed the facilitator one photo and they showed the person with the disability another photo to see if the facilitated communication was correct, and the person with a disability would type out the name of the picture that the facilitator saw and not the picture that they saw. Well, that makes it sound like it's crap. That makes it sound like it's crap. The mom's cutting up chicken and you're going to tell her that he's a vegetarian? Well, he's not a vegetarian. So why would he say that he's a vegetarian if he's not? Why would he say that he likes red wine if, according to John, he didn't even like the wine for communion? When is he listening to classical music to tell you that he likes classical music? So all these things seem just like the double-blind study. The things that you see, the things that you like, are what you're projecting onto him because you're not familiar with his life. He can't tell you that I like gospel or reggae, but you like classical music. He can't say, I like to drink beer with my brothers. So you're like, oh, he likes red wine. Why in the world would you be giving him red wine? Y'all are supposed to be learning and studying. Why are you trying to get him drunk? Because if you don't even know that he drinks beer with his brother, whether he does or doesn't, if you don't know that, what was the instance when you said, hey, here's some red wine. I like to drink red wine. Here, have some. What? That's the thing, like, that's the part, I guess, that I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around. Because I have had several professional, platonic relationships, and that never crosses over to, do you want to see my boobs? And let's go drink some red wine. What? How do you cross that line? And when you are considered a professor and a scholar, and a married woman, how do you not understand boundaries? How do you cross lines so crazy? And then her freaking mom, will sit there and say that the way that Derrick's mother walked him in the courtroom was disgusting. So, but there's a way that you could walk with him so he doesn't look as disabled. What? That's the issue? That's what you think is disgusting? Not the fact that this man cannot walk or talk on his own. Not the fact that your daughter had to take his diaper off and put him down on the floor. And then once she put his diaper back on, he had rug burn up his back. That's not disgusting to you? But the way that his mom walked him in the courtroom was disgusting. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Like, stop this. Stop this right now. That's what's wrong with her. That's what's wrong with her. Her mom said, this is disgusting. Are you crazy? And I understand sticking up for your kids and all of that. And I'm not saying, pinch them in the back or nothing like that, or drag them all over the documentary, because we would have had something to say about that too. Like, oh, well, that's why she's, out here trying to find love in all the wrong places, because you see how her mom talk about it. So, no, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is do not sit there and try to project acting like the mom is doing something wrong. The mom does not have to play up his disability for the jury. They know he can't walk. They know he can't talk. When you put an expert on the stand who says that he cannot carry out preschool level tasks, they're not thinking about how he walked in his courtroom. They're thinking about the fact that he could not say yes. So, like I said, I didn't know what to expect. When I watched it, I was floored. When she said that he wanted to practice kissing and, got overwhelmed and, was having a hard time, I almost turned it off then because it was so bad. It was so bad. I felt like I was watching an abuser detail how they abused someone. And in my opinion, that's exactly what I was looking at. And in the very beginning, she said, I'm fine with talking about this because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't break any laws. And I don't know whether I believe that or not. I don't know if I believe that she believes that, because, like I said, you said that you were going to write your name in blood and leave your husband, and you didn't. You didn't go home and tell him, like, oh, yeah, I'm not feeling it. Like, me and Derrick, we're about to get a place together. You didn't say that. You were trying to live a double life. It's not right. It's not right. And the last thing that I'm going to say is the way that she said that she sounded giddy as a schoolgirl. Still, this happened like 10 years ago or so. And I think it was like 2011, maybe, that this happened. And so it's like years have gone by. You went to prison. You got out. You're, trying to live your life now. And even still now, you're smiling. And like, yeah, like, oh my gosh. Like, you're still on it. And that's what I don't like. You don't even understand or care how you hurt the family. You're like, yeah, yep, I was screwing them. What about it? Like, that's how she comes across, and I don't like that. It's like, how did you get off with time served? You will do this again. Like, the way that she's acting, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, there was no rehabilitation. Like, how are you out? And she's like, oh, I can't teach anymore. Teaching was my life. Well, that was the avenue for you to be able to do stuff like this. So no, anybody in their right mind should not let you around anybody. Not kids, not disabled people, nobody. Like, you got a job working from home. Okay, sit at home, make your money, and sustain your life. And that's it. You should be in jail. The part that gets me is the fact that had she had to carry out her full sentence, or even 3/4 of her sentence, she would have been out by now. It's 2024. She would have been out by now. But That's still wild because you think that people do their time, right? And it's like, okay, well, they did their time. Like, okay, let's leave alone. They did a bad thing. They were punished and now they get to live the rest of their life. But for me, I wonder, had she had to complete her sentence and then still got it like, I didn't do that wrong. What does it help? What does it help? That's the scary part. Not understanding where you went wrong in this and sitting on a documentary smiling like, yeah, yep. Like, who got paid for this? Who made money off of this? Who was supposed to benefit from this? Because the way that she's smiling and getting, like, obviously the point wasn't to, make her look like a big bad wolf, but what was the purpose? Like, this was bad. It was bad. It was gross. If you have watched it, please drop down in the comments. Let me know what you think. If you watch it later, come back and tell me what you think. Like, the documentary was well done. I'm not knocking Netflix saying that it was a bad documentary, like it was poor quality. It was very well done. It was very well done. But the story, the circumstances, the case, it was bad. It was disgusting. It was too much for me. Again, thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't liked the video. Leave me a comment, and I will be back with episode 20. We're going to be back talking about the Idaho 4 case. I am very excited. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, that's all I got.